Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Commander Score Studio. Welcome to the show, and Alek's here too.
Woo! Hey!
So Alek has a brand new. Would you call it? It's not like it's a form, not a format, but like a game. It's like a game within a game.
A game. Yeah, that's probably the easiest way to explain it at this point.
So Alek's got a brand new game inspired by. Is it Dandan?
Yeah. I really can't take credit as
no.
far as
This came before Dandan, clearly, even though Slime Against Humanity is a newer card compared to Dandan.
Significantly newer.
But you knew it was coming. You had early information. You broke into Wizards headquarters.
Yeah, I've been waiting for 10 plus years
to reveal
to make this happen. So
there you go.
It's finally happening.
Okay, so it is called Slime Against Humanity. Is that the actual name of the game as well?
Sure. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Lots of thought put into the actual game itself. Maybe not so much the name, but I like. I mean,
still a little bit in testing. Copyright pending.
Yeah, that's true. Dandan's called Dandan, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there you go. That's fair.
Yeah.
Slime Against Humanity, or Sam for short. Sa. I don't know. I thought I put an M there. Yeah, Sa.
Yeah.
Sa. Let's just go with Slime Against Humanity.
Sa.
Okay. So let's talk about the actual inspiration for this format and why you built around Slime Against Humanity. You just want to start with that?
Yeah, of course. So, it sounds silly, but I was more recently introduced to Dandan, which is a, again, another game, you could call it, where all centered around Dandan the creature, which is a 4/1, I believe.
Really derpy fish.
Derpy fish that, is really a significantly older card. But someone had built a game around this featuring that as the primary threat.
I think the only threat, right? Technically,
yes, very much the only
without
threat.
Dandan.
Yeah. And so the feature of the game is all you have to have is this one deck of cards, and it's like a pre-constructed deck. So a little bit unfamiliar for those that are used to our commander.
Bringing your own, what do you mean? I've got my own 100-card deck.
Right.
What do I do with this now?
But and so both people start at 20 life, start with 7 cards in hand. So very similar to a lot of other formats. But the main difference is that the deck is 80 cards, and both players, it's a 1v1 game, and both players share the deck and the graveyard. So it leads to some interesting interactions. If you're familiar with it, I'm sure we'll put the link to the article about Dandan in there, which explains a little bit better than me fumbling through.
No, you're doing great.
The explanation. But basically it utilizes some unique effects that are, work very well with Dandan. Dandan as a creature specifies that there has to be an island in play for the creature, or it just sacrifices itself.
Island home was the old term for that, I think. Right?
Is that true?
I think so.
Wow. I
don't know if that was actually. Let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. I believe there's Island home, because like the whatever that one commander is that like gifts other players and it can't be sacrificed, and then use island. I think Island home is the term for like all of those creatures that have like sacrifice unless you have an island. Like pirate ship type things.
Yeah, okay.
I believe.
I'm not familiar with that one.
There you go.
But, I think it's piracy charm or something is changes the text of something, and so that makes the Dandan sacrifice itself. So very interesting, unique ways of interacting with the creature. But then also like weird, interesting ways of interacting with the fact that you share a deck. Scrying, not only allows you to kind of like see what's on the top of your deck, but it also can impact how your opponent is playing, because if there's a card on top that you don't really like, you can leave it on there and your opponent has to draw that for the next turn.
It's the same deck. You're both playing with the same deck. Yeah.
Brainstorm is a particularly like disgusting card in the deck because you get to draw 3 cards and then you get to put 2 cards on top. At least one of which your opponent will draw.
Yeah, they're going to be drawing it too.
So it's got some really interesting and fun interplay.
You can fate seal yourself to fate seal your opponent, essentially.
Yeah, definitely.
It's kind of funny.
And so, as much as I really enjoy this format, it does have some limits with replayability. You get a lot of games in, you start to understand more of the lines of play, and so it can get a little stale after like a lot of games in a row.
Yeah, if you're playing, especially if you're playing the exact same person, you kind of know each other's styles in it as well.
And so my brain, of course, is like, well, is there different ways that we can approach this? Is there different things that we can do with this? And I was just starting to think about this when Slime Against Humanity came out with Murders at Karlov Manor, and this one definitely kind of struck the chord of me as like, maybe this week we can do something with this.
This is the Dandan, essentially.
And so those not familiar with Slime Against Humanity, it's a green card, 2 and a green, sorcery speed. Create a 0/0 green ooze creature token with trample. Then you put X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is 2 plus the total number of cards you own in exile and in your graveyard that are oozes or are named Slime Against Humanity. A deck can have any number of cards named Slime Against Humanity. So the cool thing about this card when it comes to the Dandan style format is that the more slimes you play, and also that your opponents play, the bigger your creatures get. So it's kind of like a back and forth interplay, like a tennis match of slimes getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And
the next slime played is always going to be the biggest one. If things were just to go in normal fashion.
Yeah, and that's largely because you share a graveyard. They just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And so I was very interested in trying this out, seeing what other cards could impact it, and also trying to, as much as I could, keep within like the general thought process of a monocolored deck. Yeah. Which, almost got there. Dandan also has a little bit of red intermix, so I felt comfortable with a couple of cross-color adjustments.
100%. That's completely fine.
Yeah. So again, the focus being how many different ways can we then make this a more unique game by playing with that unique aspect of sharing a graveyard, sharing a library, and also like trying to get in a little bit more with the identity of green, slimes and getting bigger every time you cast this spell. Obviously plays a lot of interplay with how green likes to approach magic.
Big stompy
things, combat tricks, fighting, lots of stuff like that. So,
or these days like ramp, mass card draw, green.
For sure. So digging into the deck list a little bit, obviously the most important card, and again similar to Dandan, the only real win condition is the Slime Against Humanity. Now Dandan, I believe, has 12 copies of Dandan,
and you went for 18. Looks like
went to 18 slimes, mostly just because again, digging into the identity of green, just wanting to bum rush as many creatures as you can out 100%. There and have a little bit more consistency with actually getting slimes out. If you've played Dandan before, you'll know that there's a lot of typical blue turns that'll happen where it's a lot of draw, go, figure things out, sculpt your hand. I wanted this deck to play a little bit more aggressively and a little bit more interaction with the...
Or tap out and say, go ahead and do what you're going to do.
Exactly. Combat. For sure. So that's where I'm at 18.
18, all right.
I will caveat all of this to say that, this is very much a work in progress. We've had a lot of fun with
construction.
it. But, definitely interested to hear about all of your thoughts on it. And please share it in the comments if you have any particular suggestions on adjustments, new cards that I haven't considered. Definitely something that I'd be very interested to hear your input on.
Absolutely. All right, so let's go into one of the other sections. Next up, I think you've got top control. So obviously, like you talked about kind of a little bit, like manipulating the top of like libraries. It's the same library as your opponent has, so you can kind of mess with them a bit too.
Yeah, for sure. So like one card that was recently spoiled that I thought was a fun addition to this is Fountain Port Bell, which is a 1-mana artifact from Bloomburrow. And it reads, when Fountain Port Bell enters, you may search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, then shuffle and put that card on top. And it also has an additional effect of pay 1, sacrifice the bell to draw a card. So, unlike Dandan, which costs 2 blue, Slime Against Humanity costs 2 and a green. So the action can kind of take a little bit of time to develop, and hitting your land drops is really important in this. So it was important in my version of this to have more effects that like searched up lands.
Sure.
So with Fountain Port Bell, if you're stuck on 2, maybe you could play this, get the basic on tap, and then sacrifice it immediately to make sure that you get that land drop.
100%.
However, like Mitch mentioned for the top control element, you can turn with this spell, you can turn your opponent's next draw step into a basic land.
Yeah, the downside of this card in many other formats, and you probably wouldn't use this in Commander for most decks, is like, okay, like, well, I'm setting my next draw to be a basic land, which I probably don't want it to be.
Right.
But now you're like, oh, I'm setting your next draw.
Yeah. And not only that, you get to like basically fade a draw step of your own.
Yep.
For just 1 mana. So there are 4 of these in the deck. Lots of interplay with that, and also just building in just a little bit more card draw too.
Next up, yeah, that's awesome. Next up, track down. Another top deck manipulation kind of card.
Yeah, again, looking for. Green doesn't have as many brainstorm effects, so like
sure, yeah.
wanted to like try to emulate a little bit of that.
Yep.
Track down is a 1 in a green sorcery. It says scry 3. Then reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature or land card, you can draw. Obviously, this deck actually doesn't have any creatures at all.
That's a good point.
They're all created by Slime Against Humanity, so that won't really affect much. But again, wanting to leave space for the ability to get more lands if you need it. But scry 3 is really important because despite the fact that you don't, unless you hit that land that you don't really draw, you get to shape basically the next 3 turns.
100%.
Just with this 1 sorcery. So lots of interplay, and of course your opponent can do things later on to adjust this. But hopefully with this card you're setting yourself up for lots of advantage over the next couple of turns.
100%. So there are 4 of these, and it's kind of like to me, like the perfect play would be like if your opponent has no kind of card draw, you're like, okay, I set you up for first card bad, second card good, that's mine, and then the third card bad again. So you're kind of like blanking them on 2 turns.
Exactly. And with the scribe mechanic, of course, you can tuck things to the bottom if that math doesn't quite work out with what you're looking for.
100%. But it always works out for me. So anyways.
Right. Yeah. Sure.
It's always going to work out. All right. Next up, looks like we got card selection, card advantage with Harmonize. Of course, had to be included.
Yeah. Harmonize is a 2 of in here, and Harmonize, for those not familiar, 2 and double green sorcery, and just says draw 3 cards. From the tests with this and with Dandan, it's often the case where one player will just end up like having no cards in hand, and then just might be at the mercy of what's at the top of the deck.
Sure.
And so having at least a couple of these that just allow you just to dig. Have a bunch of cards
reset
in hand,
things for yourself.
Is really beneficial. So being able to hold one of these in your hand for a while and then play it when you need it is really beneficial in most cases.
Yeah.
Or if you're just ahead, then you get even more heads. So that
there you go.
this game can get very swingy for sure.
That's awesome. All right. Next up, removal. Looks like Ruthless Predation, a 3 of.
Yeah. So removal is definitely a space where there's a lot of interplay, and honestly, this is the space where I'm less confident on the card choices and numbers, but lots of different options of play here. So Ruthless Predation being a 1 and a green for sorcery. It says target creature you control gets +1/+2 until end of turn, and it fights target creature you don't control. Obviously, the main point here being making your slime fight against another one, so that way you can remove the other the slime.
And with this one, you can even punch up a little bit to protect your slime too.
Yeah, and that was very much the point with this particular choice of card, mostly because if you've got a slime that's a 3/3 and your opponent has a slime that's a 4/4, you can still remove your opponent's slime with your own
while keeping yours in play still too.
Yeah, for sure. So lots of interplay there. This is a 3 of right now. And then also in the cases where like multiple slimes are involved or whatever, just getting through that extra damage, especially since these slimes have trample, can have a lot of interesting impacts across the board. Same goes with the next slot that we have, a 2 of Dismember.
Yeah, there you go. There's your color break right there.
Yeah, main color break right here.
What do you mean? This is a green spell, right? It's 1. It's just 1 in 4 life. That's what it is.
So the Dismember again is an instant with 1 and double Phyrexian black. Target creature gets -5/-5 until end of turn. So in a lot of cases, this is just a straight up removal for a lot of slimes.
Sure.
But also, can play if you're attacking into a bigger slime, or if another bigger slime is attacking into you, and you need to, remove it in this way.
Yep. Obviously,
Obviously, the 4 life hurts if you don't have any black will come. Will tackle the land base here in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But there are ways of getting black to kind of mitigate that cost, but also just knowing that in a lot of cases, just removing your opponent's slime is going to be worth the 4 life down the road if you get to that point.
And to confirm, and I'm sorry if you already said this too, but it's a 20 life format, I assume?
20 life, yeah.
20 life. So there you go.
Yeah.
So on like Commander, it's not like, 4 life, whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, this is a fifth of my life total.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
So definitely can be a painful price to pay, but
Sometimes
sometimes we've had cases where sometimes you just
have to.
need to.
You got to bite the bullet. Bite the bullet. All right. Next up, we got status and statue.
Yeah, so this is definitely a fun approach to removal, and something that fits very well with the slime. So, this is not a fuse card, but a double split card. I think.
Split card, I guess.
Yeah. So status is a green-black filter instant that says target creature gets +1/+1 and gains death touch until end of turn. So again, lots of interplay with combat. You can pump your slime if you need it, of course. You can make it a better blocker with giving it +1/+1 and death touch as well. Or even if you just need to punch through that final couple of pieces of damage, this is great for that too. But then also having the split side available to you if you can get to the mana. So statue is 2 black and green as instant, and it just says destroy target artifact, creature, or enchantment. So again, if you can find the black mana, if you're up to 4 mana, this means you can just straight up remove any slime in your way or that's attacking you. Just kind of that reset button to
100%.
Little extent. So nice to have the flexibility in this card to do both.
100%. Yeah, I would not have thought about going about building this kind of stuff. I wouldn't have thought about kind of the edge case cards. You're like, okay, like I can include this, which can just be used like a split card like this. But like if you get lucky, you can use the other half too. Like I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah. So this is definitely like the primo removal that you're really looking for. When you're playing this deck.
All right, next up looks like we got combat tricks, giant growth. I love you want to see giant growth used in a format.
Yeah,
but a goodie. I love it.
And again, using this as an opportunity to utilize cards that we haven't used a lot, or just like rotting in the back of your box. But for those not familiar, in case giant growth is a 1 green instance as target creature gets +3/+3 until end of turn. Obviously primarily focused on combat tricks. Or you could fade a dismember if you really needed to in some cases, but in general, just like way of making yourself a better blocker,
getting more damage through,
So just a very, very easy trick, but very important to see in a format like this, especially so focused in combat.
Nice little 2 of. Okay, next up we got Gaia's Gift, another 2 of.
So this is a 1 and a green instant. It says put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Obviously great with slimes because they have +1/+1 counters. And also gains reach, trample, hexproof, and indestructible until end of turn.
All the things. That reach is very, very reasonable, or very, very needed, I think.
Very, very relevant.
That reach is very relevant. That was the word, relevant. Yeah, not reasonable. Very relevant to have that reach.
But gives that permanent stat boost, and then also protects against removal. Or if you just have to block in a way that's disadvantageous. This protects your slime, and in a close game too, you could use this. Use your smaller slime to block, but then swing in the next turn for lethal if you need to. So
unexpected plays.
You're
like Gaia's Gift. Oh no! The best card in Magic.
Well, I'm just so used to playing limited and stuff like some of these combat tricks that really take you out of the game. So
you might not see necessarily in a format like Commander potentially, except for very specific decks.
Right. So 2 of just mostly because not expecting this to be happening all the time, but for when you need it, it can be a nice edge case.
Absolutely. All right, next up, land support. We've got Explore. There's your ramp in green. There you go.
Yeah. You got to have a little bit.
People are going to complain if you don't throw something in. It's like, all right, you can ramp. This format ramps too.
Yeah. So again, for those unfamiliar, Explore, 1 and a green, a sorcery. It says you can play an additional land this turn, and you can draw a card. So drawing obviously is important in this format to get around some of those top control elements that we talked about. But then also, the additional land can be somewhat relevant, largely because, again, the slimes being 2 and a green, 3 mana cost, taking a little bit of time to get yourself up and going, moving through the game. And so, especially if you're playing second, wanting to take an opportunity to get ahead a little bit on the land count, or if you're just flooded with lands for a little bit, having a more opportunity to kind of get your lands under you can be beneficial. So it's just a 2 of, but definitely something that we through testing we've seen lots of good interactions come out of.
Absolutely. And I think the real spice comes with one like this. The next one we get Recursion, 6 cards for them. A Reclaim, love it.
Yeah, so Recursion having 6 cards in the deck for Recursion is something that probably not familiar with in Commander
for many players, sure.
But it has some very interesting interplay with this kind of format. So Reclaim is a 1 green instant and says put target card from your graveyard on top of your library. And so obviously, rebuying spells, but you have to consider too that this doesn't work super great as a sorcery because it just puts a good card on the top of your library for your opponent. But where this is really fun is you can play this on your opponent's turn to put a card that you really like or really want on top of your library for you to draw next turn. So that's really the main point of this. But there's also some interesting interplay with this as well, where say your opponent casts a Slime Against Humanity, you can cast Reclaim in response, put a different Slime Against Humanity on top of the deck.
So there's a slightly smaller.
And then you're guaranteed to draw another one the next turn that's going to be bigger than the
theirs,
one they have. So expect this to have some lots of fun interplay, and yes, of course, this feels a little bluish, but
it's in green. There's Recursion.
It wants there to be some fun ways of playing with this game in a different way. So.
Absolutely. Corrosion Reclamation card from I think it's Judgment, long time ago back.
Definitely on the same vein as Reclaim. So Corrosion Reclamation, a 1 green instant. Target player shuffles up to 2 target cards from his or her graveyard into his or her library. Also has Flashback, 1 and a green.
Flashback's really interesting with that in a 2-player same deck game.
Right. So this is more to hose the slime casting. So again, when someone plays a slime, you can cast this as an instant to shuffle 2 slimes into the deck. So that way their slime is significantly smaller. Also, one thing we didn't mention is that there's always a possibility with this game of decking out.
You run out of slimes.
Just decking out in general.
Well, that too.
So if just like any other Magic game, if you were to draw a card and there's no cards in your library, you lose the game. So since you share a deck, there can be some interplay at the very, very end of the game where you're fighting over the final draw. So
that's kind of funny.
Putting cards back into the deck can be helpful. And then Flashback is really interesting too with this particular format because any player can play the flashback cost. So you kind of have to be careful when you actually cast the spell from your hand because you're also giving your opponent an opportunity to use it as long as they have priority.
100%.
So kind of fun way of playing around with the graveyard here too.
Yeah, that'd be the interesting question. Are you passing priority? Wait. Just waiting for the wake. Yes. Okay, I cast.
Okay, I got
no, just kidding. Not doing it. So, no, that's not. Two of those, I believe, right?
Yep, 2 of those. Yeah.
Cool. All right, when it comes to lands, so we got 14 forests. Gotta love basics.
Yep, gotta love the basics.
Yep.
This was something taken out of the Dandan format, but 4 Golgari Rot Farms.
Oh yeah.
So that's a land that when it enters tapped, but then when it ETBs, you return a land you control to your owner's hand, and it taps for green and a black.
So bounce land.
Yep. Also, bounce land quickly. Here's an element for where space you can get a little black into your mana pool, but then also reset some of the other lands that you're going to play. Also just kind of hedges a little bit on if you don't draw enough lands, you can bounce a land back to your hand. Just to make sure that you're getting up to that critical point of 3 or 4 where this deck really operates on. So nice to have those and a little more interplay.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think the highest mana value out of anything you have in there is 4 for something to cast. I mean, I guess technically 5 with but you can't fuse it. So.
Right. But you a lot of times you want to have multiple. You can be able to cast multiple things
in
turn as well.
100%.
It's hard just to throw out a Slime Against Humanity and then
I win.
Not really
I got
have
my
any
3/3 slime out. I'm good to go. I win.
Right.
You can't stop it. It's a slime.
It's helpful to have some sort of protection or some other thing to be able to play to, have that interplay.
What about politicking and be like, you know what? You could just attack that other player over there.
Yeah, it doesn't really work super great in a 1v1 format, but
Gotcha.
we can try.
Temple of Malady, so one of these Scrylands.
Yep. Scryland's great for this. Again, controlling your more top control your opponent's next draw step. Also, more access to black and green.
Yep.
So 4 of the temples, and then 4 of Tranquil Thicket.
That's pretty sweet. I like that.
Nice to especially if you're land flooded, have some draw functionality. Kind of can be a little bit of a surprise draw too if your opponent's setting up a scry. And, you just decide to churn through the deck a little bit. So nice to have those there. Very similar to the Temple, Underground Mortuary is a 4 of. For those familiar, this is going to be that new Surveil land that has the Swamp Forest land type. So, again, can tap for green or black. But then when it ETBs, you Surveil.
Which is technically better in most scenarios, including potentially this one.
Yeah, largely because if you see a slime at the top, you can put that in the graveyard, and especially if you have a slime of your own to cast, you've basically just added another +1/+1 counter to your slime and prevented your opponent from drawing that card. This is one where I'm kind of like flexing between the counts for Underground Mortuary and Temple, because Temple is a little less functional than Underground Mortuary, and to be perfectly honest, I just don't have as many Underground Mortuaries.
Just dropping I guess 4 times. That's $48 worth of the budget.
This is a budget channel, and those are not budget
slime
at
is
all.
166 per with 18 of those, so that's probably $30 too. So the most of the budget is literally Underground Mortuary and the slimes. And that's basically
pretty much. So trying to curb the costs.
That's a good point. That's a good point. And then revitalizing Repast.
Yeah, kind of a fun MDFC from Modern Horizons 3 now. It's a filter green-black. Also, the backside is a land that's green-black as well. So, just more ways of finding that black mana if you need it. And then this is just acts as another combat trick. Where you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature and it gains indestructible until end of turn. So, a little bit worse. Gaia's what's the card?
Guy's Gift or whatever it is.
Gift, but has the additional functionality of also being a land.
And just 1 mana too. Yeah.
So, and cool to bounce back with like Golgari Rod Farm.
Absolutely. Didn't think about that. Yeah,
that's the deck.
I like it a lot. I like again, like it's had to take forever to kind of put together and like figure out the cards. Like I'm sure you went through every single card in Magic's history. It was just like what works with this? What can I fill like all these different top control, adjust to the top, bouncing, all these other things.
Yeah, and I mean like there's lots of other cards that I'm still considering. Like Poison the Blade is a fun way of like doing Death Touch, but also with card draw. But yeah, as I mentioned, still very much in test mode, like alpha beta version of this. If anyone has any thoughts or suggestions on changes, I would love to hear it, because just want to make this deck better. And if you decide to play it yourself, would love to hear your feedback and thoughts.
Absolutely. Yeah, to be honest, I have not played this yet. We're actually going to play it probably right after this episode at some point, and I'm very excited to do so. So I'm chomping at the bit to probably get whooped in this first round. Be like, yeah, I got this. I got 3 slimes in play. I'm good to go. And all of a sudden, dismember, and then I'm just done. Yeah.
Well, again, trying to build in as much interaction with this as possible, so that way, Green Stompy can sometimes feel like very one-dimensional.
You're on rails and you're like, okay, I do this.
But
I get thing out, I swing.
Cool. Want to add as much complexity to the deck as you can.
Complexity in green, I like it.
We gotta make sure that this is not a thing where we play it once and then we never pick it up again, because that was just boring. We don't want that.
Yeah. 100%. Well, I absolutely love the design. I think it's a really cool idea. I like a nice little bridge off of Dandan, and okay, now your job is to do the other colors now too. Okay, so we need red, we need white, we need black. I think red would be especially hard to do.
Dragon's Approach?
I don't know. Yeah,
that seems very boring.
There you go.
Just fill it with Dragon's Approach and Lightning Helix.
There you go.
Back and forth.
Yeah, exactly. That would take not long at all. Yeah. Just lightning bolt. Every version of lightning bolt essentially, and just pinging each other for 3 each time. And be like, all right, go super quick.
Starting life total is 80.
Yeah. Next turn, 3 lightning bolts.
Yeah.
You go. Nice. Well, I will include the link to this in the description below. Yeah, thank you again for joining on this one. Thank you for sharing. Again, comment below if you have any ideas. I'm sure you have many ideas already. You're like, how'd you not forget this one from Ice Age?
Totally.
Constructive criticism, please. But yeah, thank you again for coming over and for recording. And of course, as always, thanks again, and have a good one.
Have a fun, y'all.
This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all their support.